The stars around the Helix Nebula had never seen so many warships gathered in one place. 12 different species had sent their representatives to witness what the Valkyrie Empire called the greatest moment in galactic history. Their ships floated in a wide circle, keeping a safe distance from the 5 massive battleships that dominated the center of the gathering. Each Valkyrie battleship stretched 3 kilometers from bow to stern. Their hulls were black as the void itself, covered in sharp angles and weapon ports that glowed with an angry red light. The ships were called the Iron Crescents, and they represented 10 years of military development and unlimited resources. The Valkyrie had built them for one purpose: to make every other species in the galaxy kneel. High Admiral Zorath Venn stood on the bridge of the flagship, his forearms clasped behind his back as he watched the gathered vessels through the main view screen. His gray skin was marked with the ritual scars of 100 victories. His yellow eyes held no warmth, no mercy. He had conquered 11 worlds in his career, and he intended to conquer many more. "They are afraid," he said to his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Dreth Mal. "I can almost smell their fear from here." Dreth Mal nodded eagerly. He was younger than Zorath, hungry for glory and advancement. "They should be afraid, High Admiral. No fleet in the galaxy can match the Iron Crescents." Zorath allowed himself a thin smile. "Today we show them the truth of Valkyrie power. Today we end any hope of resistance." On one of the observer vessels, Ambassador Kevin Grant of Earth watched the Valkyrie ships with a calm expression. He was a tall man in his 50s with gray hair and steady hands. He had spent 30 years in diplomatic service, and he had learned long ago that showing fear only encouraged predators. "Impressive ships," said Captain Lisa Moore, who commanded the diplomatic transport. "Big, anyway. Size is not everything," Grant replied quietly. "The Valkyrie have always confused size with strength. It is a common mistake among empires." The captain raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She had heard rumors about human military capabilities, but she had never seen them demonstrated. Like most civilians, she only knew what the government chose to share, which was very little. A signal came through all channels. High Admiral Zorath's face appeared on every view screen in the gathering. "Representatives of the Galactic Assembly," Zorath announced, his voice deep and commanding. "You have been invited here to witness the power of the Valkyrie Empire. For too long, the galaxy has existed in chaos. Too many species fighting over too few resources. Too much disorder. The Valkyrie offer a solution: unity under our protection." He paused to let his words sink in. "Some of you may doubt our ability to enforce this unity. Some of you may believe your own defenses are sufficient to resist us. Today, we will remove all doubt." Zorath gestured to someone off-screen. A moment later, the 5 Iron Crescents turned their weapons toward a small moon that orbited a dead planet nearby. The moon was uninhabited, a barren rock about 800 kilometers in diameter. "Observe," Zorath said. The battleships fired simultaneously. 5 beams of concentrated plasma shot across the void and struck the moon. The surface cracked. Magma erupted from the wounds. Within seconds, the entire moon began to break apart. Chunks of rock, the size of cities, tumbled into space. Glowing orange with heat dot, in less than a minute, the moon was gone. Only debris remained, spreading outward in an expanding cloud. Silence filled every ship in the gathering. The representatives of 12 species stared at their view screens in horror. They had just watched a celestial body die, and the Valkyrie had done it without effort. "This is our power," Zorath continued. "This is what awaits any world that refuses to accept Valkyrie authority. We do not make threats, we make promises. You have 1 solar cycle to submit your formal declarations of loyalty. Any species that refuses will be visited by the Iron Crescents." Ambassador Grant leaned back in his chair and sighed. He had hoped the Valkyrie would be reasonable. He had hoped this demonstration was merely posturing. But the look in Zorath's eyes told him otherwise. The High Admiral believed in conquest. He enjoyed it. Grant activated his personal communicator and sent a coded message. To Earth Command. On the bridge of the Valkyrie flagship, a communications officer suddenly straightened. High Admiral, we are receiving a transmission. Another ship is requesting permission to enter the observation zone. Zorath frowned. All representatives are already present. Who dares arrive late to witness our glory? The officer checked his console twice before answering. It is a human vessel, High Admiral. They say they were delayed, but wish to observe the demonstration. A murmur ran through the bridge crew. Humans. The young species from the small blue planet on the edge of the spiral arm. They had only been part of galactic society for 50 years. They kept to themselves mostly, trading peacefully and avoiding conflicts. Most species considered them insignificant. One ship? Zorath asked. Yes, High Admiral. Just one. Drethmal laughed. They send one ship to witness 5 battleships? Either they are very brave or very stupid. Zorath smiled coldly. Let them come. Let them see what awaits their species if they refuse to submit. Perhaps watching their small vessel tremble beside our fleet will teach them their place in the galaxy. Transmitting clearance now, the officer said. A few minutes later, a point of light appeared at the edge of the gathering. It grew brighter as the ship dropped out of hyperspace and glided toward the assembled vessels. The USS Resolute was 800 meters long, barely a quarter the size of a single Valkyrie battleship. Its hull was a deep gray, smooth and angular. It moved with a quiet grace that seemed almost gentle compared to the brutal lines of the Iron Crescents. Zora studied the human ship and felt nothing but contempt. It was a toy. A curiosity. Nothing more. Scan them, he ordered. The sensor officer worked his console for a long moment. Then he looked up with confusion on his face. High Admiral, our sensors are having difficulty reading their ship. Some kind of interference. I can detect life signs and basic hull composition. That their weapons and power systems are unclear. Unclear? Zorath's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? The readings do not match anything in our database. I cannot determine their offensive capabilities. Drethmal stepped forward. It is probably a sensor malfunction. No species has technology that can hide from Valkyrie scanners. Zorath considered this. His second-in-command was probably right. The humans were a young species with limited resources. They could not possibly have anything that would threaten the Iron Crescents. And yet, as he watched the small gray ship take its position among the observers, something cold touched the back of his mind. It was a feeling he had not experienced in a very long time. It felt almost like doubt. He pushed the feeling aside. Today was about demonstrating Valkyrie supremacy. One human ship changed nothing. He was certain of it. Commander Daniel Perry stood at the center of the USS Resolute's bridge with his hands clasped behind his back. He was 43 years old, with short brown hair and a face that showed the wear of 20 years in space. His uniform was simple dark blue with silver trim, and he wore no medals or decorations despite having earned many around him. His bridge crew worked their stations with quiet efficiency. They had trained for moments like this. They knew what was at stake. All stations report, Perry said calmly. Lieutenant Laura Kim looked up from her tactical console. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and quick hands. In the academy, she had broken every record for weapons accuracy. Tactical is ready, Commander. I have firing solutions for all 5 battleships locked in. Engineering standing by, came the voice of Chief Engineer Nathan Cole through the intercom. He was down in the engine room, surrounded by the humming machinery that powered the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. All systems green. She's ready to dance if you need her to. Dr. Hannah Blake, the ship's medical officer, stood near the back of the bridge. Her presence was unusual. Medical officers rarely stayed on the bridge during potential combat situations, but Perry had asked her to observe. She was also an expert in alien psychology, and he valued her insights. The Valkyrie ships are moving into formation around us, Lava reported. They're trying to intimidate us. Perry nodded slowly. Let them. Hold position. On the main view screen, the 5 massive battleships spread out in a crescent shape, their weapons facing the Resolute from all sides. It was a display of dominance, a predator showing its teeth to what it believed was helpless prey. The other species watched from their observer vessels. Many of them felt pity for the humans. They had seen what the Valkyrie battleships could do to a moon. What chance did one small ship have? A communication request appeared on the screen. Perry gestured for it to be accepted. High Admiral Zorath filled the display. His yellow eyes studied Perry with cold amusement. Human Commander, Zorath said. You arrived late to our demonstration. I hope the journey was not too difficult for your modest vessel. Perry met the alien's gaze without flinching. We apologize for the delay, High Admiral. We wanted to make sure we understood the situation fully before arriving. And do you understand it now? I believe we do. Zorath leaned forward slightly. Then you understand that your species faces a choice. Submit to Valkyrie authority or face the same fate as that moon. We received your ultimatum, Perry replied. Earth has considered it carefully. And your answer? Perry paused for just a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was steady and clear. Humanity does not accept ultimatums, High Admiral. We came here not to submit, but to observe. A ripple of surprise passed across Zorath's face. He had expected fear. He had expected begging. This calm refusal was something he had not anticipated. You refuse? Zorath's voice grew colder. 1 ship against 5 battleships, and you refuse? We refuse, Perry confirmed. On the observer vessels, the representatives of the other species watched in disbelief. The humans were either incredibly brave or completely insane. Perhaps both. Ambassador Kevin Grant's voice came through on a secure channel to the Resolute. Commander Perry, this is Grant. I'm requesting permission to address the assembly. Go ahead, Ambassador. Grant's face appeared on the communication network that connected all the gathered ships. He spoke calmly and clearly, his words reaching every representative present. Members of the Galactic Assembly. I am Ambassador Kevin Grant of Earth. Humanity has been part of galactic civilization for 50 years. In that time, we have sought only peaceful trade and mutual cooperation. We have not conquered. We have not threatened. We have simply tried to be good neighbors. He paused to let his words settle. Today, the Valkyrie Empire has threatened every species here with destruction if we do not submit. They have shown us their weapons. They have demonstrated their willingness to use them. And they expect us to kneel in fear. Grant shook his head slowly. Humanity will not kneel. Not to threats. Not to intimidation. Not to bullies who believe that power gives them the right to rule others. We came here today to make one thing clear. Earth will never submit to tyranny. Zorath cut into the transmission. Pretty words, human. But words will not save you when my ships reduce yours to atoms. Grant smiled slightly. Aye, Admiral. I suggest you scan the Resolute more carefully before you make threats you cannot keep. On the Valkyrie flagship, sensor officers worked frantically at their consoles. They tried every scanning frequency, every detection method they knew. But the human ship remained a mystery. They could see its hull, detect its life signs, but its true capabilities stayed hidden behind some kind of interference they could not penetrate. What are they hiding? Dreth Maul demanded. Unknown, Sub-Commander, the sensor officer replied. Our technology cannot read their systems. Dreth Maul turned to Zorth. High Admiral, we should destroy them now. Make an example of them. Show the others what happens to those who defy the Valkyrie. Zorth considered this. Part of him wanted to give the order, but another part, the part that had kept him alive through 100 battles, whispered caution. Move the fleet into attack position, he ordered. But do not fire until I command it. The 5 battleships adjusted their formation, bringing their main weapons to bear on the Resolute. The small human ship was now surrounded on all sides. Trapped in a cage of plasma lances, on the Resolute's bridge, Lavra Kim reported the movement without emotion. They're targeting us, Commander. All 5 ships. Perry nodded. Understood. Hold position. Do not power up weapons, sir? Lara looked at him with surprise. We are not the aggressors here, Perry said quietly. We will not fire first. But if they shoot at us, he turned to meet her eyes. Then we will show them exactly what humanity can do. Dr. Blake stepped closer to Perry and spoke softly. The Valkyrie are used to species that back down when threatened. They don't know how to respond when someone stands firm. No, they don't, Perry agreed. And that confusion is our advantage. Zorath's voice came through the communication channel again. Human Commander, this is your final warning. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Refuse, and I will destroy your ship. Perry looked at the view screen, at the massive battleships surrounding his vessel, at the weapons pointed at his crew. High Admiral, he said calmly, I must respectfully decline. The silence that followed stretched for 5 long seconds. Then Zorath's face twisted with rage. Fire warning shot, he commanded. Show them we do not bluff. A single plasma lance erupted from the flagship. The beam of concentrated energy shot across the void directly at the bay. Resolute. Every observer watching expected the human ship to explode. They expected fire and debris and death. Instead, the plasma struck the Resolute's shields and vanished. No explosion. No damage. Not even a flicker in the shield matrix. The beam simply disappeared. Silence fell across every ship in the gathering. The representatives of 12 species stared at their view screens in shock. On the Valkyrie flagship, Zorath felt that cold feeling return to the back of his mind. It was stronger now. It felt like fear. That is not possible, Dreth Maul whispered. On the Resolute's bridge, Lavra Kim checked her console and reported with a slight smile. Shields at 100%, Commander. No damage. Perry nodded slowly. Then he opened a channel to the Valkyrie flagship. High Admiral, he said. I think there has been a misunderstanding about who should be afraid of whom. High Admiral Zorath stared at his view screen in disbelief. The plasma lance from his flagship was designed to cut through the strongest armor in the galaxy. It could slice battleships in half. It could crack open fortified stations. It had just struck a ship 1/4 the size of his own, and it had done nothing. Impossible, he breathed. That is impossible. Around him, his bridge crew worked their stations with growing panic. They ran diagnostic checks, examined sensor readings, tried to understand what they had just witnessed. None of them could explain it. Sub-Commander Dreth Maul stepped forward, his face tight with anger. It must be a trick, High Admiral. Some kind of illusion or sensor manipulation. No shield technology can absorb a direct hit from a plasma lance. Then explain what I just saw, Zorath growled. Dreth Maul had no answer. On the observer vessels, the representatives of the other species watched in stunned silence. They had come here expecting to witness Valkyrie dominance. Instead, they had seen a single human ship shrug off, a weapon that could destroy moons. Whispers began spreading through the gathering. Who were these humans? What kind of technology did they possess? And why had they hidden it for 50 years? On the Resolute's bridge, Commander Perry stood calmly at his station. He could feel the tension in the void around him. The Valkyrie were confused and frightened, which made them dangerous. Frightened predators often struck without thinking. "Status report," he said quietly. "Shields holding at 100%, Lavra Kim reported. Their plasma lance was powerful, but our barrier field converted the energy into harmless radiation. We could take several more hits like that without any trouble." Chief Engineer Nathan Cole's voice came through the intercom from engineering. "She handled that beautifully, Commander. The Resolute was built for exactly this kind of situation. Those Valkyrie weapons are impressive, but they're based on technology that's 50 years behind ours." Dr. Hannah Blake studied the sensor readings showing the Valkyrie ships. "They're confused, Commander. The Valkyrie have never encountered anything they couldn't destroy. Their entire culture is built on the assumption that they're the strongest species in the galaxy. What just happened challenged everything they believe about themselves. And that makes them unpredictable," Perry said. He turned to Laura. "Keep tracking all 5 ships. If any of them power up their main weapons, I want to know immediately." "Already on it, sir." On the Valkyrie flagship, Zorath made a decision. He had spent his entire career crushing resistance. He had never retreated. He had never shown weakness. He would not start now. "All ships," he commanded over the fleet channel. "Target the human vessel. Full barrage. Destroy them." Drethmal's eyes widened. "Aye, Admiral, if their shields can withstand one lance, perhaps we should—" "I gave an order," Zorath snarled. 5 battleships firing together will overwhelm any shield. No species in history has withstood the combined power of the Iron Crescents. The 5 massive battleships turned their weapons toward the Resolute. Dozens of plasma lances, missile batteries, and energy cannons locked onto the small gray vessel. The firepower about to be unleashed could devastate a continent. On the observer vessels, species who had been enemies for centuries found themselves united in a single thought. The humans were about to die. "Incoming fire," Laura reported, her voice sharp. "All 5 battleships are targeting us. Multiple weapon systems charging." Perry took a slow breath. "Helm, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Lavra, keep those firing solutions ready." "Commander," Laura said, "should we return fire?" Perry considered the question carefully. They could destroy the Valkyrie ships. He knew that now. The Resolute was capable of things the galaxy had never seen. But destroying them would mean killing thousands of Valkyrie crew members. It would mean starting a war that might spread across the entire galaxy. "No," he said finally. "Not yet. We avoid their fire. We show them they cannot hurt us. But we do not shoot first." "Understood." "Sir." The Valkyrie fleet opened fire. What followed was something the gathered species would remember for generations. The void around the Resolute erupted in light. Plasma beams, missiles, and energy bursts converged on the human ship from all directions. The firepower was overwhelming, devastating, absolute. Nothing could survive such an attack. But the Resolute was not nothing. The human ship moved with impossible grace. It rolled, spun, and danced through the storm of weapons fire like a leaf in the wind. Plasma beams passed within meters of its hull, but never touched it. Missiles streaked past and exploded harmlessly in empty space. The few shots that did connect splashed against shields that refused to break. How are they doing that? Drethmal shouted over the chaos on the Valkyrie bridge. "No ship can move like that." The Resolute weaved between the battleships, passing so close to their hulls that the Valkyrie gunners could not fire without risking hitting their own fleet. It was like watching a small bird outmaneuver 5 slow giants. "Shields at 94%, Nathan Cole reported from engineering. "We've taken a few glancing hits, but she's handling it perfectly." I told you this ship was built for this. On the Resolute's bridge, Lavra Kim watched her tactical display with growing confidence. Commander, their firing patterns are predictable. They're not used to fighting something they can't hit. I have clear shots on all 5 ships. Hold fire, Perry ordered. Sir, they're trying to kill us, and they're failing. Perry's voice was calm but firm. We came here to deliver a message, not to start a massacre. Let them exhaust themselves first. The barrage continued for 3 more minutes. The Valkyrie poured everything they had at the human ship, enough firepower to reduce a small planet to rubble. And through it all, the Resolute danced and dodged and refused to die. Finally, the weapons fell silent. The Valkyrie ships had overheated their guns. They needed time to recharge and cool their systems. The Resolute floated in the middle of the formation, untouched and unbroken. On the Valkyrie flagship, Zorth gripped the railing in front of him so hard that his claws left marks in the metal. His yellow eyes burned with something he had never felt before: helplessness. "Aye, Admiral," his weapons officer said quietly. "Our main batteries need 15 minutes to recharge. The secondary weapons are ineffective against their shields." Zorth said nothing. He stared at the view screen, at the small gray ship that had just survived the combined might of his entire fleet. "Commander." Perry's face appeared on the communication channel. His expression was calm, almost sad. "High Admiral Zorth," Perry said. "Your ships have fired everything they have at us. Your weapons are overheated. Your crews are exhausted. And the Resolute has not suffered any significant damage." He paused to let the words sink in. "I'm going to give you one chance to stand down. Withdraw your ultimatum. Allow the gathered species to leave in peace. Do this, and we will leave as well. No one else needs to be hurt today." Zorth's face twisted with rage. "You dare offer me terms? 1 ship against 5 battleships, and you think you have won?" "I think," Perry said quietly, "that you have already lost. You simply haven't accepted it yet." The channel went silent. On the Resolute's bridge, Lavra Kim looked at her commander. "He's not going to surrender, is he?" Perry shook his head slowly. "No, his pride won't let him." "And what do we do?" Perry was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to face his tactical officer. "We show them," he said. "Lavra, prepare the Sunlands. Target their weapon systems only. I want those ships disabled, not destroyed. No unnecessary casualties." Lavra Kim nodded and began working her console. A low hum filled the ship as systems that had been sleeping came to life. "Sunlands charging," she reported. "Ready on your command." Perry looked at the view screen one last time. He had hoped it would not come to this. He had hoped the Valkyrie would see reason, but some lessons could only be taught the hard way. "Fire," he said. The Sunlands was humanity's answer to a hostile universe. For 50 years, Earth had watched the galaxy from the shadows. They had observed the wars, the conquests, the endless cycle of strong species crushing weak ones. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had learned a simple truth in a universe filled with predators. The only way to survive was to become something predators feared not, so humanity had built the Sunlands. When Lavra Kim pressed the firing control, a beam of concentrated light erupted from the Resolute's main cannon. It was not like the Valkyrie plasma lances, crude weapons that relied on brute thermal energy. The Sunlands was something far more elegant. It was a focused stream of particles, accelerated to nearly the speed of light. Guided by targeting computers that could track a grain of sand from 1,000 kilometers away, the beam crossed the void in less than a second and struck the flagship's weapons array on the Valkyrie battleship. Chaos erupted. The Sunlands cut through their armor like it was made of paper. It sliced across the ship's forward weapon ports, severing power conduits and melting gun barrels. Secondary explosions rippled along the hull as ammunition stores overheated, but the beam was precise. Surgically precise. It destroyed only the weapons. It did not touch the engines, the life support, or the crew quarters. The Valkyrie aboard the flagship felt their ship shudder and groan, but they remained alive. Direct hit, Lava reported. Flagship's forward weapons are offline. Perry nodded. Next target. The Resolute moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Its engines were not simply faster than the Valkyrie's ships. They operated on principles the Valkyrie did not understand. The human vessel seemed to flicker from one position to another, appearing beside each battleship long enough to fire before vanishing again. The second battleship lost its main gun array in a flash of light. The third took a hit to its missile launchers, which crumpled and went dark. The fourth and fifth tried to maneuver away, to put distance between themselves and this impossible enemy. But the Resolute was faster, always faster. It circled them like a wolf circling wounded prey. 2 more shots. 2 more weapons arrays destroyed Dot in 4 minutes. It was over. The 5 greatest battleships in the Valkyrie Empire floated dead in space. Their weapons were slag. Their crews were alive but helpless. They could not fight. They could barely move. Silence filled the void around the Helix Nebula. On the observer vessels, the representatives of 12 species sat in stunned silence. They had just watched a single human ship defeat 5 battleships that could destroy moons. They had watched it done with precision and mercy, disabling rather than destroying, sparing lives rather than taking them. It was not conquest. It was not brutality. It was something they had never seen before. It was restraint. Commander Perry opened a channel to the Valkyrie flagship. High Admiral Zorath's face appeared on the view screen. The proud warrior who had threatened the galaxy just hours ago now looked broken. His yellow eyes were dull. His shoulders sagged. "High Admiral," Perry said quietly, "your ships are disabled. Your weapons are destroyed. Your crews are alive. This was not a battle, it was a lesson." Zorath stared at the human commander through the screen. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why did you spare us? Any other species would have destroyed us. We would have destroyed you if we could." Perry was quiet for a moment before answering. "Because that is not who we are," he said simply. "Humanity does not kill when we do not have to. We do not celebrate death. We do not enjoy suffering. We came here today to deliver a message, not to commit a massacre." "What message?" "That the galaxy does not belong to those with the biggest weapons. It belongs to everyone. And anyone who tries to take that away through threats, through intimidation, through conquest will find humanity standing in their way." On the Valkyrie bridge, Sub-Commander Dreth Mal watched the exchange with calculating eyes. He was already thinking about what this defeat meant for his own future. Zorath had failed. Zorath had humiliated the Empire. When word of this reached home, there would be consequences. Dreth Mal quietly activated a recording device. Every moment of this disaster was being saved. It would be useful later. Ambassador Kevin Grant's voice came through the communication network, addressing all the gathered species. "Representatives of the Galactic Assembly, you came here today expecting to witness the rise of a new galactic order under Valkyrie rule. Instead, you have witnessed something different. You have seen that strength without wisdom leads to defeat. You have seen that power without mercy earns no respect." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "Humanity does not seek empire. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want to live in peace with our neighbors, to trade fairly, to explore and learn together. But we will not be threatened. We will not be intimidated. And we will protect those who cannot protect themselves." On the observer vessels, the reaction was immediate. Species who had been preparing to surrender to the Valkyrie began whispering among themselves. The calculus of power had shifted. The galaxy was not what they had thought it was. Dr. Hannah Blake moved closer to Perry and spoke softly. "Commander, I'm detecting a lot of communication traffic between the observer ships. They're talking to each other. I think they're starting to realize they have options now." Perry nodded slowly. "Good. That was the point. What happens now? Now we give them a chance to choose their own future. Whether they take it is up to them." On the crippled Valkyrie flagship, Zorath sat heavily in his command chair. His career was over. His fleet was destroyed. Everything he had built, everything he had conquered, meant nothing now. How? He asked no one in particular. How did they become so powerful without anyone knowing? A young officer nearby spoke hesitantly. "High Admiral, the humans, they've been in the galaxy for 50 years. They've traded with many species. They've been friendly and peaceful. What is your point? They never showed us their true strength. They let us believe they were weak. They let everyone believe they were weak." The officer's voice trembled slightly. "They've been watching us this whole time, learning, preparing." Zorath closed his eyes. The humans had played a game that lasted half a century. They had let the galaxy underestimate them while they built ships like the Resolute in secret. They had waited until the moment when their intervention would have the maximum impact. It was brilliant. And terrifying. On the Resolute's bridge, Lavra Kim finally allowed herself to relax slightly. Her hands were still steady on her console, but the immediate danger had passed. "Commander," she said, "the Valkyrie ships are powering down completely. They're not going to fight anymore." "Confirmed," Nathan Cole reported from engineering. "Their power signatures are dropping to minimum levels. They've accepted defeat." Perry nodded and let out a slow breath. "Stand down from combat alert. Maintain defensive posture, but no aggressive actions." "Aye, sir." Chief Engineer Cole's voice came through the intercom again. "Commander, I have to say, she performed even better than I expected." "The Resolute is an incredible ship." "She is," Perry agreed. "But a ship is only as good as her crew. You all did well today." The bridge crew exchanged quiet looks of pride. They had just faced 5 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. They had won, and they had done it without killing anyone who didn't need to die. That was what made them human. Perry turned to Dr. Blake. "Doctor, I want you to prepare medical teams. Once the Valkyrie agree to a ceasefire, we're going to offer them assistance with any wounded." Blake raised an eyebrow. "You want to help the people who just tried to kill us?" "Yes," Perry said simply. "Because that's what we do." Blake smiled slightly and nodded. "I'll have teams ready within the hour." On the communication channel, Ambassador Grant was finishing his address. "To any species that wishes to discuss alliance or partnership with Earth, humanity welcomes the conversation. We offer friendship to those who seek it, protection to those who need it, and a promise: we will never be the aggressor. We will never threaten the innocent. We will never become what we oppose." He paused one final time. "The galaxy can be better than it has been. Today is the first step." The transmission ended, and across the gathered vessels, for the first time in hours, there was hope. 3 days had passed since the battle at the Helix Nebula. The Valkyrie fleet limped home through hyperspace, their damaged ships moving slowly toward their empire's border. High Admiral Zorath had not spoken to anyone since the ceasefire. He stayed in his quarters, staring at the walls, trying to understand how everything had fallen apart. Word had already reached the Valkyrie homeworld. The Iron Crescents, the mightiest weapons ever built by the Empire, had been disabled by a single human vessel. Counselors were demanding answers. Military commanders were calling for Zorath's removal. Some were even whispering about revolution. Sub-Commander Dreth Mal, had already transmitted his recordings to powerful allies back home. He had made sure everyone knew that he had advised caution, that he had warned Zorth about underestimating the humans. When Zorth fell, and he would fall, Rethmal intended to rise. On the Resolute, Commander Daniel Perry sat in his ready room reviewing reports. The ship had sustained only minor damage during the battle, easily repaired by Nathan Cole's engineering team. The crew was in good spirits. They knew they had accomplished something important. A chime at the door interrupted his thoughts. Enter. Dr. Hannah Blake stepped inside, carrying a datapad. Commander, I wanted to update you on the wounded Valkyrie officer we treated. Perry looked up with interest. How is he? He'll make a full recovery. The burns were severe, but our medical technology was able to regenerate the damaged tissue. Blake paused. He's been asking questions. What kind of questions? About us. About humanity. He doesn't understand why we helped him. He expected us to let him die, or worse. Blake sat down across from Perry. I think we confused him more by showing kindness than we did by defeating his fleet. Perry nodded slowly. Good. Confusion is the first step toward learning. He asked me something interesting. He wanted to know if all humans were like us. I told him that we try to be. And what did he say? Blake smiled slightly. He said he hoped that was true. Because if humanity is what we showed him today, maybe the galaxy has a chance. On the observer vessels that had witnessed the battle, conversations were happening that would reshape galactic politics for generations. 3 species, the Fenari, the Koloth, and the Mirathi had already sent formal requests to Ambassador Kevin Grant, seeking diplomatic relations with Earth. They wanted treaties. They wanted trade agreements. Most importantly, they wanted assurance that if the Valkyrie ever returned with revenge in mind, humanity would stand beside them. Grant handled each request carefully. He made no promises he could not keep. He explained that humanity valued partnerships, but would never seek to control or dominate their allies. The species on the other end of these conversations were not used to such honesty. They found it refreshing. In his quarters, aboard the diplomatic transport, Grant spoke with Earth Command through an encrypted channel. The situation is better than we hoped, he reported. The Valkyrie threat has been neutralized for now, and we have 3 species actively seeking alliance. Others are watching and waiting to see what happens next. The voice from Earth Command was pleased. Excellent work, Ambassador. The Council will want a full briefing when you return. Understood. But I want to make one thing clear in my report. What's that? Commander Perry and the crew of the Resolute deserve the credit for this success. They faced 5 battleships and won without killing a single enemy combatant. That restraint, that choice to be merciful when they could have been brutal, is what made the difference today. We'll make sure that's noted. Ambassador. On the Resolute's bridge, Lieutenant Laura Kim was running her usual system checks when Commander Perry emerged from his ready room. Commander, she said, I've been thinking about something. Go ahead. She turned to face him. During the battle, when we had firing solutions on all 5 ships, you ordered us to disable rather than destroy. We could have ended the Valkyrie threat permanently. We could have made sure they never bothered anyone again. That's true. So why didn't we? Perry was quiet for a moment, considering how to answer. When I was young, he said, my grandfather told me something I've never forgotten. He said that true strength isn't measured by what you can destroy. It's measured by what you choose to protect and by what you choose to spare. He walked to the main view screen, looking out at the stars. The Valkyrie came here to intimidate the galaxy into submission. They wanted everyone to fear them. And for a moment, it worked. Every species watching believed they had no choice but to surrender. But then we showed up, Laura said. We showed up, Perry agreed. And we showed them something different. We showed them that power can be used with wisdom. That strength can be paired with mercy. that there's a better way to exist in this galaxy than through fear and conquest. Lara considered this. Do you think the Valkyrie learned that lesson? Some of them. Maybe. The young officer Dr. Blake treated. He might carry what he experienced today for the rest of his life. He might tell others. He might change minds. Barry turned back to face his tactical officer. Change doesn't happen all at once. It happens one person at a time. Nathan Cole's voice came through the intercom. Commander, engineering reports all systems ready for departure. The Resolute is good to go whenever you give the word. Thank you, Nathan. Helm, set course for Earth. Aye, sir. Course laid in. Barry looked around his bridge one final time. These people, Lara Kim, Nathan Cole, Hannah Blake, and dozens of others, had trusted him with their lives. They had followed his orders into battle against overwhelming odds. And they had emerged victorious not through brutality, but through excellence and restraint. He was proud of them. More than words could say. Engage, he said. The Resolute turned away from the Helix Nebula and accelerated toward the hyperspace jump point. Behind them, the gathering of species was already dispersing, each vessel carrying stories that would spread across the galaxy. Stories about the humans. The quiet species from the small blue planet who had hidden their strength for 50 years. The people who built ships that could defeat battleships and chose not to kill. The civilization that offered friendship instead of demanding submission. On one of the Valkyrie battleships being towed home, a young officer named Korath watched the human vessel disappear into hyperspace. He was the same officer who had pointed out to Zorath that the humans had been watching and preparing for decades. Korath had spent his whole life being taught that the Valkyrie were superior, that other species existed to serve or be conquered, that mercy was weakness and compassion was foolishness. But the humans had shown him something different. They had defeated his fleet and then offered medical aid to the wounded. They had won and then chosen not to humiliate their enemies. They had demonstrated power beyond anything he had imagined and then used it with restraint. Everything his empire had taught him suddenly seemed wrong. Korath did not know what the future held. He did not know if the Valkyrie would learn from this defeat or simply seek revenge. He did not know if his species would evolve or continue down the same path that had led them to this moment. But he knew one thing. He wanted to learn more about the humans. He wanted to understand how a species could be so powerful and yet so merciful. He wanted to know if there was a way to be strong without being cruel. And perhaps, just perhaps, he could help his people find that way too. The stars stretched endlessly before him, full of possibilities he had never imagined. For the first time in his life, Korath felt something he had never experienced. Hope. Far away. The USS Resolute vanished into hyperspace, its mission complete. But its impact on the galaxy had only just begun. History would remember this day. Not as the day the Valkyrie demonstrated their power as they had intended, but as the day humanity stepped out of the shadows and showed the galaxy what true strength looked like. It looked like mercy. It looked like restraint. It looked like choosing to be better than your enemies expected. And it looked like a single ship, crewed by ordinary people doing extraordinary things, lighting a path toward a future where power and compassion could exist together. The galaxy would never be the same.